All right. So today we're going to be talking about online reputation management, and some of the things you can do to increase sales and basically just stand out online. So got a lot of people entering a little bit late here, so give me 1 second.
Oh, yeah, some shit like that.
All right, just mute a couple people. All right. So what we're going to be covering today, we're going through a bunch of different things, but we're going to talk about we are going to talk about the different tools that you can use for getting reviews, and some of the tools you can use to get more reviews, but also kind of explain, a tool is not going to solve all your problems, and you got to have some good systems in place too. We're also going to be talking how you can tap into multi-channel communication to get more reviews, email, SMS, and then how you can, really incorporate a system inside of your team to really get the whole team behind this whole initiative, because the reviews are really critical. I'm going to show you some stats here in a second. But the best way that the businesses that we see do the best work are the ones that are basically have the whole team behind it and are on a similar mission to get as many reviews as possible. And then also going to talk about kind of the importance of how you need to acknowledge all the reviews, respond to them, or, if it's a bad review, try to get it taken down. All right. So if anybody here has not met me or hasn't been on one of these webinars, I'm Alex Danner, the owner and founder of Fence and Deck Marketers. And basically, Fence and Deck Marketers was basically designed from day one to provide really good information, really good solid sources to how you can grow a fencing or decking business. So we have a lot of content that we release and put out for free. These webinars, of course, we do each month. We do social media close to each day. Wrote a book, Best Known Fence and Deck Contractor. And then we have the podcast, the Fence and Deck Mastery podcast. We bring on all kinds of guests there. I think we're on around episode 80 now, and we're part of NADRA, part of the AFA, and we do a lot of speaking at different events, and we just did Deck Expo, and then if anyone's on the fencing side, we'll be at Fence Tech and have some different classroom sessions there, as well as a booth. So it'd be great to meet anyone there when that comes up in, I think, February. I want to see what you guys think. So question is, do you need to consistently get online reviews? But I want you to put a one. I want you to put a one in the chat if you think reviews are important and you need to consistently get them. Put a two if you don't. If you a two in the chat if you don't think they matter as much, and put a three if you think that as long as you have enough, you're good to go. You don't need to consistently get them. So one, still important. Three, get as many as you need, then you're good. Two, if you think they just don't matter. To give you, rather than just saying they're important, I want to give you some like actual data behind it, some statistics. So, and this one just really surprises me as well, but they say that 84% of people trust an online review or online reviews as much as they do a personal recommendation from friends or family. So most people really trust, online reviews, and you can tell that. I mean, if you kind of think about it yourself, if you're buying something off Amazon, something much cheaper than a new fence or a deck, if you're anything like me, and I think most people do this, you're not going to buy anything if the review count is low or if it has a bad average. So you got to go and check that out and see what people are saying about it, before they reach out. So, and then also 77% of consumers think that reviews more than 3 months old aren't relevant. So while it is very important to be competitive with reviews, Google does check to see if you're consistently getting them. So they don't want to see, and this is also especially true if you have competitors that are getting reviews consistently too. So it's good. It's really important to have that consistent flow going through your Google listing. So of course, yes, they are critical. And here are just some reasons to kind of dive a little bit deeper in here. So basically, they're going to impact your Google rankings. So Google is pushing more and more for ranking Google listings. So in the map pack, when you type in, deck builder near me or fence company near me, they're going to show that map pack. It's 3 Google listings, and a big way to show up there is to basically have good reviews and consistent reviews. So Google's not going anywhere with that. They're going to keep really they're going to keep pushing this more and more, and even more so, or I mean, also very important is AI also looks at this too. So if you're searching on ChatGPT or any of the AI platforms, you'll see, you can ask Google like, why did you rate this company higher? Or they'll give information on a business that they ranked high, and they'll say, reviews are a big piece of that. So it's critical for Google and for AI, and really just about everybody looks at online reviews. So 88% of people do. It's extremely rare for someone to hire a fence or deck company without checking their online reviews. So, whether they found you on the website, searching on Google, or they found you with AI, or, a billboard, anything like that, postcard, they're going to go and try and find you, and basically see how you stand out before they're going to spend, 5, 10 plus thousand on a fence, 20,000 plus on a deck, that kind of thing. And it's just a huge conversion factor. If you have, say you are doing we'll talk offline for a second, say you are doing a billboard or a postcard, and people are seeing this, they're going to want to look at, who's behind this, because great, like you got a postcard, but if there's not a business behind it, people that are willing to pay more money are typically the ones that want to know that it's a reputable company and see a website, see some reviews. So if you have that really high review count, it's a major, major conversion factor. And I've seen it many times before. If you just increase the Google reviews and increase the average, and not change a whole lot else. If you're in an area, granted, if it's a major, highly populated area with a lot of competition, it's harder. But if you're not in a overly competitive market, if you get a lot more reviews, you'd be surprised at how much more leads you get just from that. Because if you're sitting there with 5 or 10 reviews, and competition has 50 or more, or maybe your competition has the same amount as you, if you're that one that stands out and has a lot more, that's where their eyes are going to be drawn immediately, because they're like, oh, okay, they have 50 reviews, 100 reviews, whatever, and a 5-star average. Like, clearly people are having good interactions with them, and that's going to make it a lot easier to work with them. And generally, people want to work with that company too. If like you're the clear leader in an area and you have all these reviews, people are going to want to work with that company because they're going to think you're going to do the best job. They might still bark at price and stuff, but there you will be the one that kind of has that upper edge if you're really standing out with reviews. So I always like to say this because it really is a huge, huge deal. I think online reviews and reputation really can make or break a company. Maybe not break it. There's plenty of examples where people have bad reviews, and there's other ways to generate leads, not just what we're talking about here. But if you have a really bad review average, it's going to absolutely turn away a lot of people. So if you're sitting there with high threes or low fours, or even worse than that as an average on Google, people are just going to naturally not want to look at it. And if you have a whole pile of bad reviews, they're going to look at it and be like, okay, are these guys really someone I can trust if I see all these really bad things, talking about them? So basically, you want to make sure you're paying attention to that. And like I said earlier, it can make a company too. If you go from 5 reviews to 50 or 100, it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to get more leads. There's other little factors in there, but generally, it's going to just get more leads just from that fact. This is a really, really important one too. So a lot of times we hear contractors that rightfully probably are the better contractor in their area. Maybe it's someone that's just been around a while, they do really good work, and you almost kind of expect that to follow with more leads. And generally, referrals and things are going to follow from that. But the sad truth is, best known is going to beat best every time these days. It's great to be both, and that's the best way to be. But if you are that company that stands out, looks the best, has the most reviews, you have a great website, that kind of thing, that person, even if it's a brand new business, for the most part, if they're sitting there with all these, great reviews, things like that, they're going to outshine that contractor that's been around forever and has no reviews, because most people don't even know a contractor, for that specific job that they're trying to do. So fence or a deck, most people don't know a contractor off the top of their head. So they're going to go to things like Google to figure out who's the best one, ChatGPT, all that kind of stuff. So it really doesn't matter how good you are, because, you know, the sad truth is if you get someone that's really good at marketing and, takes care of all these things, they're going to for sure get more leads and more opportunities. No, it's not fair, but that's just kind of the world we live in. People just will judge a book by its cover, basically. Um, and quite frankly, if you don't have reviews at all, or you're just not taking it seriously, you're just not going to get very many leads because you're not going to rank on Google and that kind of thing. So definitely need to pay attention to it. One thing we do see pretty often too is, and this is probably even the most common with decking too, because it's usually takes longer to put in a deck than it does a fence. But even fencing, it's not like we're talking about HVAC or plumbing contractors. So you don't have as many at bats or as many opportunities to get reviews. So a lot of times people will use different software, which is a good idea, but it's not always going to solve the problem. It's not always going to mean that you get basically as many reviews as you want, or every time you ask for one, you get one. So I'm just curious to see kind of where everyone's at. Put a one in the chat if you are using a review management tool. Put a two in the chat if, well, just for now, put a one in the chat if you're using some kind of review management tool. I guess this doesn't apply to this group. Usually we get some that have used a review software, but the good news is when we go through this, I'm going to show you a way to use these tools, but an even better way to get more consistent reviews as we go through this a little bit more. So basically what we typically see is, you know, if you're not getting those reviews, failure in getting reviews can translate into failure in your business. If you're not growing, you're dying. So if you're not getting that and keeping up with it, that's a big problem. And I actually just did a interview with Bobby Parks, if anyone's on the decking side, if anyone knows him, but brought him on the podcast, and he brought up something kind of, something that he was mentioning on there. You want to have that consistent review flow. You want to have a big number of reviews, just because it helps with Google and it looks good. But another point he was mentioning that's very true as well. If you have a low number of reviews, say you only have like 10, and you get one-star review, that's dramatically decreases your review average. Whereas if you're consistently getting them, you have 50, 100, and you get one bad one-star review, it's not going to break you. You can still keep that average. You want to keep it around 4.7 or higher. So, at the end of the day, like, we do all this work to get leads, we do all this to sell them, we do all this work to complete the projects. And then if we're not asking for reviews, it's basically like not supporting the business for the future, because without that review, without getting them consistently, you're not putting in that work to invest in the company to get it to rank better, later on and produce more jobs. So it really is a big wasted opportunity by not being able to get those reviews. I think everybody probably here has either seen this personally or just heard a story about it. Some people just only like leaving one-star reviews. So if you're in business, pretty much inevitable, you guys are going to run across someone that just leaves a one-star review that you don't agree with. And I heard a really dramatic story from another agency and one of their clients. They said they basically had a customer that was very unsatisfied with the service, and they left a really bad review. They tried doing what they could to remove it. They even tried creating a new Google listing. And basically, that person followed them around everywhere. They would write a bad review as soon as a new one popped up. They would put it on Yelp. They would put it on Facebook. So they said this happened for years. Basically, they just couldn't get rid of it. So unfortunately, there's just kind of people out there that just want to see the world or watch the world burn, I guess. So, you gotta make sure something like that happens. You kind of have something to counteract it, and definitely don't get in an arguing match in the response. But this really is a huge opportunity for these industries, especially. I would say decking even more so than fencing, but because there's not that many opportunities to get reviews, if you're really consistent with it, you're going to stand out like crazy, and you won't have the competition like an HVAC person does that can get 1,000 reviews or 2,000 reviews. where it'll take you forever to catch up. In most cases, some people will have hundreds, but a lot of the times we look at this, it's usually 50, 60. There's tons and tons of cities where 50 or 60 runs a whole area. And I've seen them as low as, 20 or 30. So it's a big opportunity because you can set yourself apart and really make it so somebody can't catch you either. You can be that equivalent of the 1,000, 2,000 on a plumbing or HVAC Google listing. Here's a list of the tools because uh, they are better than nothing, and they do work. It's just not something you want to solely focus on, basically. So when you use these are a bunch of different options here. They're going to send an email or a text. They're going to ask for a review and will help you automate this process a little bit better. There's also one on here that I didn't add. It looks like is Nice Job. I've heard that one's good as well. But these are different options. We've created one internally to help with this too, and that's been a good solution as well. But these are some of that are more of like a commercial software for doing this that'll help automate it. But yeah, basically, at the end of the day, it should just speak for itself. You shouldn't. I think everybody probably has heard, like your website should work for you. It should be a salesman for you, that kind of thing. If you kind of picture it, you have a Google listing that's just dominating on reviews. That's basically like having a salesman just kind of sitting there, making you look good. And eventually they'll click and go to the website or whatever, give you a call, that kind of thing. So you want to have that reputation really speak for itself. So you don't have to rely just on the sales process to show how great you are. There should be that consistent list of reviews to help you out too. Okay, so I'm going to go through the 5 key principles for generating more online reviews. I think at the end of the day, we all want to find a quick fix, a quick solution to get more reviews and kind of gain the system. But at the end of the day, a lot of times what, people that are consistently getting bad reviews, it's usually going to start at the root that needs to be fixed, because there's nothing that you can do to stop getting a bunch of bad reviews. If you're just consistently getting them, I've seen it before, it's hard to just make up for it. And usually just getting more jobs, more leads, more sales is not going to be a winning solution, especially with something like Google, where 1-star reviews end up having a ton of weight and can kind of put you in a hole. So what I always like to say is, think about the things that are causing these bad reviews. Like, I get that some people are just bad eggs and they, just want to leave bad reviews and are just angry people, whatever, whatever the case may be. But you got to look at the experience too, not as a way to prevent 1-star reviews, but get those 5-star reviews. If you're doing things that people are really surprised by, and then you create that whole world-class experience, that's a really big deal. So I'm actually reading, remember the title of this, now that I think about it. I'm reading this book right now. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. So it's a really good one so far, but it's basically about the #1 restaurant in the world. So they have all these like restaurant competitions, and it talks about this guy who basically created this #1 restaurant in the world, and that was mainly based off of the experiences they provided. It's really cool. They had a couple in there that never seen snow before. I don't know where they're from, but they came to New York City. That's where the restaurant was. And as part of their experience, they basically like created a whole day of like playing in the snow and sledding. I think it was like just something where they could go out and like have their first like snow day. And that the book is full of like different things that they did like that, just stuff that is so ridiculously unexpected that people are just blown away by the experience. And the reason I'm writing that is because I want to get better about that too, internally, to come up with like ways that shock people. But those different things are not only a great way to be more likely to leave a review, but tell people about it. Because if it's just a basic experience, people aren't going to tell their friends and family about it. But if there's something that really stood out, I mean, if I went to a restaurant and they planned a snow day for me, I would definitely be telling somebody about it. So that's kind of like where the world is going now, because frankly, probably because of reviews, like that. now that reviews can really harm a business so much, people realize they got to do things to make people really to make their business stand out. And I think it'd be a good one to read for anybody. So creating that good world class experience is something I would be focusing on. You know, it's not good if somebody has to guess about the appointments. We do that internally, like where you send emails and texts about appointments, so there's no worry, I guess, about when the meeting is. And then I've seen contractors do this where they'll send texts that people are on their way. That's a really cool one, so people can see the face of the person that's coming. Um, and just always picking up the phone, making sure you have an answering service or an office person that can always make sure that the phone's being picked up, and giving those consistent updates so people know where they are on the job. So a little bit past like the basics of cleaning, having a clean area, just thinking of new ways to do that. And I think it becomes fun too. Like I think if you just think of these ideas and can generate something that creates that really great experience and surprise somebody and kind of make their day, I think it's pretty cool. Um, we started to do stuff like that internally, and it just makes you feel good, makes them feel good, and will help get more reviews too. Okay, so building into the company culture is a really really important step. So I pretty much always hear, I mean almost exclusively, that the maybe the owner wants to generate more reviews, or they see the importance, but the salespeople don't, the supervisors don't. Everyone's like afraid to ask, and just nobody ends up doing it. So if you have it built into the company culture, that's when really some cool stuff can happen. You can have competitions for things, to try and get more reviews and really fuel that competitive spirit internally. Um, so but I will say the one of the truest ways that we've seen to get reviews, like a process that's worked, that we've gotten, from seeing real results from clients. So if you are about to start a job and they say yes, they're ready to go, talking to them in the beginning and say, hey, if we do a great job, would you be willing to leave a 5-star review? They're going to say yes. And then when the job is done, um, that's when you can really go in and ask them for the review. You say in the beginning, you told us you'd leave a 5-star review if we did a great job. Is that something you're willing to do? And then they say yes, be like, okay, great. And then you try to get the review on the spot. You try to get, maybe a business card with a QR code that goes to the review link, a Zappy card, which is even better. You tap it on their phone, it brings up the review screen. Um, you will be much more likely to get the review if you do it on the spot. So you don't want to wait until later, uh, because then they're not going to care. If you want to get them in that moment of excitement to basically, when they're like all pumped about their deck, they're going to be much more likely to just write the review real quick. Another side piece of that too, you can kind of pull on the heartstrings a little bit and say, if you leave this 5-star review, uh, our crew that worked on your job will get free lunch or a bonus. Typically, free lunch is a pretty good one. So you make it about the team, the guys that were working on it, not necessarily the sales or the ownership. People are more likely to help them than the ownership, frankly. So, but the kind of the point of all this is make sure you get it quickly, and maybe even have crew members ask for the review too. All right, so the whole idea is you basically need to make sure everything that you're doing is actually being measured, inspected. I don't know if anybody here runs EOS. We do. So having like a scorecard that tracks the number of reviews each week is a good idea. So that way you can update processes, anything internally to help fix it or help put you in a better position to get more reviews. Um, and then, if you get a good amount of reviews, you can have some kind of bonuses. I've seen clients do that where they'll, gift card or bonus if they get the most reviews, or maybe you go out to dinner or something fun like bowling. Seeing businesses like do a yearly contest where if you get to this number of reviews, then the whole team goes on like a cruise. That was one that was a little bit more generous, but at the end of the day, it's if you hit a big review number, It's likely going to pay for itself. Okay. And then the tools here. So we already talked about that, but worst case scenario, if you're not able to get that review on the job, your next resort is to try to email them, text them, call them to ask for the review. So you need to have something to do that. Also, if you have past customers, which I'm sure everyone does, you haven't gotten reviews from, then you want to make sure that you're asking for those reviews from past people to build that review count up versus just paying for or sorry, just getting reviews for the future jobs. So the new ones that you guys are going to be going, or the new jobs you're going to be completing. Okay. Put a 1 in the chat if you respond to every review, good or bad, that comes into the Google listing. Put a 2 if you don't or you're not great about it. Every single one, good or bad. I mean, if it's a bad review, you want to ideally try to call them up and get them to take it down, that kind of thing. You can try, although it doesn't always work. I mean, you can try to get it removed by reporting it as spam. The owner of the Google listing report as spam, and then have the rest of the team members basically report it after that. Sometimes that works to get it removed. But if you can't, and then you can't get the person to remove it, best thing to do is just hold back any frustration or anger, the need to like really unleash on this person and just kind of, have a think about the response as a way just for the future customers, something that to them will make sense and, be more or less likely to hold that bad review against you. So just be nice, all that kind of stuff. If you're kind of a jerk about it, then it's going to be much more likely that they're going to think, they might have a bad experience with you too. But if you get good reviews, it's a really good idea to include some keywords in there. So if you somebody leaves a review for say a deck, you can include the city that they worked in, the service, thank you so much for choosing us to be your deck builder in Atlanta, Georgia, wherever. And you can use things like ChatGPT to write these responses too. They'll do a better job than me. But that's a really, really good idea is to include some keywords in there too. Just curious. So, curious with all these different principles. So, want to see which ones you think you need the most work on. So, number one, providing. Here, I'll just bring them back to you. I want to see what you guys think or would put in the chat which number you think you need to work on the most. So the world-class experience, building into the company culture. 3 is how do you measure, celebrating it, and measuring it, the number of reviews, using a tool to help with it, and then acknowledging and responding to every review. So out of all of those, just curious which one you guys think needs the most work, needs the most help with. Tools, I think that was probably the most common one. Got some 3s and 2s. Yeah, incorporating in the teams and celebrating. Okay. All right. I'm curious what you guys think. Is nobody put a 1? Does anybody think that? I guess put a 1 if you're really confident with like the overall experience that you're providing, doing, I guess, the little things to really improve the experience, and then put a 2 if you think that can be improved on. I always say like a number that people start to feel kind of warm and fuzzy about you is, really, you really got to get to 20 as quick as humanly possible. Really 30, I think, is where it starts to feel a little bit better. But that's also like, it's good to be at that point. You'll start to look better if you got 20, 30 5-star reviews. But at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to, everything is relative. So if you have competitors that have way more than you, if you have several competitors that are over 100 and you're at 20 or 30, it's going to make you look inferior to them. So it's really important to kind of see how often competitors are getting reviews and how many they have, because it's going to be a big problem if you see somebody that's just getting a new review every week and you're not, basically, because they're just going to kind of leave you in the dust and will always look better than you, and it'll be hard to catch them. So I'd recommend, check the competitors, see how you look competitively. Do you stand out? Do you look like you're just from that perspective, someone that a company that looks like you would provide a good service, that kind of thing. Because if not, it's going to be a problem, and you need to get that review count up and get more consistent with it. Here's just kind of an overview of the strategy for driving these consistent reviews. So it is a good idea to get some kind of tool. Out of all the ones that I've heard private see clients use the most is Nice Job. That one seems to work pretty well. The review card, I've seen clients, give like a basket when they finish a job, and it includes like a QR code. That's good to use as well. But definitely getting it in person is going to be the best way to do it, and using the Zappy cards and getting the review there, and training the salespeople to, I guess, plant the seed in the very beginning, and then do whatever they can to deliver that world-class experience internally. So if you're, the company that's everybody's thrilled with the whole process, good communication, all of that, that's going to set you up for success too. Um, and then if you can't get the review at the finished process, if they don't do it, typically the best way to do it is going to be to give them a call, trying to get a hold of them and then walking them through the process, because sometimes people just have a really tough time logging into their email to leave the review, or they don't have a Gmail email, or their spouse does and they're not with them. So what you sometimes have to do is basically give them a call and help walk them through the process to get the review. Um, then the company culture, really big deal there. Do whatever you can to get everybody on the same page and understanding the importance. And then that's going to, allow you to get a lot more reviews, or a lot more people asking for reviews or having it top of mind. And then using email, SMS to help reach out and ask for them is a big deal as well. List here, I don't know, Nice Job is not added, but that's one of the best ones that I've seen. These are a few others that I've seen. So if you are in need for a system and you don't have one, this is also a good idea too, to try one of these. I think Bird Eye's on the pricier side. I don't know if that one's that great, but just some different ideas for help getting those reviews. What I would do, like I said, if you're doing EOS and or you just have weekly meetings, I would absolutely create a system to start with where you can manage this each week. So I'm sure a lot of you at least do weekly meetings, but there should be a system to say, like, all right, this week, how many reviews did we get? Is this acceptable? Can we get more? Because if you don't have that, basically system in place, is never going to improve. But then have somebody that is also in charge of this too. So give someone that has when a new review comes in, they can respond to it. They can also be in charge with maybe helping getting past reviews from past clients. So a lot of times what we'll do is see if we can find like an office admin that works for the company, and then they they take the list of the clients, and then they call those past customers to try and get reviews that were done in the past. That can help you get you a head start. In, if you have a big backlog of clients, that can help you get there quicker. And then the negative reviews, make sure whoever's doing this knows how to handle the situation. This one can get a little bit tricky. So, they might need to talk with the team to see what actually happened, but make sure they know not to write really bad responses or really defensive responses. So that way you don't have that bad piece there. And yeah, we already talked about the responses, but yeah, just think about what keywords you can add. If you installed a vinyl fence or chain link, put that in there. If you installed a new composite deck, or maybe it's a Trex or TimberTech decking, whatever, put those in the responses, and talk about where where you're working, what city you're in, that kind of thing. That's going to help you get better results from it too. When you use these tools, I will say, like, it can tend to be too scripted, I guess. So they're better than nothing, but any kind of like personal touch that you can add to it is going to help make it more likely that you get the review. If it's just one of those automated things, like the one I get from Orkin after every service, like it's the same thing every single time, people just kind of get caught onto that, and makes them a little bit less likely. But, if you can add a personal touch that it's like, oh, wow, they like went out of their way to type this out, that can go a long way. Just like a personal note can help, get more attention for you. And I say that the platform they use, if you notice that they're responding better on text, or they're more of someone that likes to take calls, or Facebook, whatever they're most responsive with, use that as a way to ask for the review. And then, ask at each stage. We already talked about that in the very beginning. You can ask for it at the end as well, and then try to reach out after if you're still not able to. Uh, this one is hugely important. The peak customer happiness. So I mean, if you're reviewing the deck and they're really ecstatic about it, or the fence, they're really happy about the job that was done, look for those moments to ask for the review, because they're going to be a lot more likely to leave the review if they're all excited and things like that. They have all this energy built up to leave the review really quick. So having the supervisors, the salespeople, whoever's doing that final piece, have them look for that as a way to be like, hey, do you mind us leaving a review real quick? And yeah, they're going to be more likely to get that review when they're the happiest. And then the employee rewards program, so just rewarding people to leave the reviews, that's going to help out a lot. So if you're asking for a review and they're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll leave one for you. A really big key is to make some kind of incentive to get the review there. So, maybe you say the crews get free lunch if you get the review on the spot that day. Or you could say, if you leave the review right now, here's a $50 Amazon gift card. And, have the card right here. Be like, if you leave it right now, we'd be so grateful. And you can have this review or this gift card right here. So any little incentives you can do, it's going to be a lot better to do it that way versus having someone continuously call and follow up with them. The best way to do it would just to knock out that quick review while they're happy and get it done. Here's some other incentives that we've seen for employees, like to make them more likely to leave the review or get on board with leaving more reviews. So actually seen clients use lunch with owners. So being able to go out with the owners and talk with that, people appreciate that time. Time off, giving them a Friday off, something like that. This is a pretty cool one here, the gift of time. So I heard of a contractor doing this. They will hire someone to clean their house if if they win a review contest, something like that. They get a certain number of reviews, or pay someone to walk their dog, or pay someone to mow their lawn. So there's little ways to get creative, doing this too, and something that just stands out more than maybe like a gift card or a cash bonus. Also, I've heard of We Are the Champions. So, if you have unique gifts like a parking spot, I've heard of like a wrestling belt, like a review champion wrestling belt. And then you could, of course, do the cash, however many reviews over 30 days or the whole year, they get 500 or 2,500 for the year, something like that. And then subscription services, give them a Netflix subscription, or I've seen people do like a car wash subscription too. So think of clever ways. And in the case of a car wash subscription or Netflix, it's not that much each month to kind of award this, and likely is going to mean more than a award that's of cash value that's even higher than that. So try to have fun with it. That'll help out a lot. All right, so we're getting at the end here. Just curious, well, if anybody has any questions for one. Also would love to know any kind of takeaways, like anything that kind of stood out. Is there anything that you think would help you personally to get more reviews? Hopefully something that you think would be useful. So any takeaways, any questions? Love to hear from you. So what do you think about using Google Forms to get reviews from clients? So you wouldn't want to do that, because then it wouldn't go to Google. So the Google form would just basically store the review somewhere else. The way you'd want to do it is send the link to your Google listing. So that way, when they leave the review, it actually goes to your Google listing. And then when you have that, you can add a widget to the website to like display all the different reviews that you have. So yeah, Google Forms would just kind of help you internally. I mean, I guess that's better than nothing, but you'd have to just rewrite those out on the website if you got them that way. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't help you with your rankings either. So I mean, just look at people in your area, the competition, see what they have. I mean, you might start to see some correlation between the companies you respect and the number of reviews they have and the ones that don't. So, but I can promise you it will be worth the time and effort if you do pay attention to reviews. Said reviews a lot today. So there's nobody else here. Any takeaways? I mean, that's just about it. So if you have any questions about marketing, want to discuss this any further, just feel free to reach out. Um, oops. Feel free to reach out through our website. You can give us a call there, and happy to talk. This is the critical time to get ready for spring. So if you're kind of behind on your website, your SEO, right now is a great way to give you enough time to really build the rankings and get you ready for when the springtime comes. So if you have any questions about that with websites, SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, social media, feel free to give us a call, reach out through the website, and happy to talk to you. I hope this was helpful for everybody. We'll have another one next month. And actually next month we'll do the whole digital, I think it's the whole digital marketing planning for the year. So we'll be able to we'll have a workbook that'll show create an exact plan for the marketing that you need to do. We'll have basically a spreadsheet that will calculate how many leads you need to hit your revenue goal, how much money in marketing you need to spend, and just where your priorities should be. So hopefully we can see everyone on that one too. But until next time, hope everyone has a great day and a great rest of the week. See ya.